it's time for us to start our very special session on Cambodia. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to take up this particular session will have two presentations. The first presentation has two presenters taking up this section jointly. And as we talk about Cambodia, also to let you know, we have a large delegation from Cambodia in the house. Our first presentation in this particular special section is on Cambodian cashew value chain analysis and findings. We have two speakers for this presentation. I would like to invite on stage the senior advisor to GIZ. Presently, she leads the European Union Germany co-founded project, Cambodia Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems, that focuses on private sector development. Please put your hands up for Ms. Egrim Riskolova. Let's hear it for her. Joining her on the stage as co-presenter for this part is Mr. Jim Fitzpatrick, the President of Ingredient Sourcing Solutions.
We would like to attract your attention to Cambodia and present you the findings of the cashew value chain analysis we just recently completed. I will talk briefly about our project and the scope of the analysis, and then Jim will present you the findings. So our project, similar to our colleagues in West Africa, the MOVE project, we aim to improve the competitiveness of the Cambodian cashew value chain, and we work along the entire value chain. That means we start with increasing sustainable production, compliance with international market requirements. We intend to increase the processing levels of cashew in Cambodia, of course, also by attracting investment to the country and especially into the cashew sector. And then we, of course, also promote trade of Cambodian cashew nuts worldwide. And we've also work on overarching topics as research and also changing political framework regulations. So this is just briefly about our project. And the first thing we actually did when we launched the project, we asked Jim to conduct this value chain analysis for us, as we wanted to understand the sector better and, of course, to define the most promising interventions for our project. So the analysis was led by Jim, but we also had the support of 6 local consultants who did the data collection in the field. We covered 7 cashew growing provinces, which are actually the biggest cashew growing provinces in Cambodia. And the area we covered is 87% of the cashew growing area and 86% of the production. You will just briefly see the different steps we undertook during this analysis. And now we are almost at step 1, so we will launch and disseminate the results in Cambodia on the 11th of March. And with this, I would stop and give the word to Jim.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our findings from our study. And this is really something that's never happened before in cashew nuts and probably will never happen again. It's the most dynamic story of production and development that I've ever come across. And it is the story for this generation of the cashew industry. I'll start and talk about production. I'm going to talk about production, I'm going to talk about commercialization, and a little bit about value addition. Starting with production, as Igrim said, we did a study in about 7 provinces, which account for about 87% of the production. So you can see the darker green being the major production areas, that it is quite highly concentrated. So here we have Cambodia, here would be Vietnam, and in this area here you get a lot of processing of cashews. If we look at the production trend, you can see where it came from. 2014, 49,000 tons. last year, by our estimates, about 840,000 tonnes. It is absolutely remarkable. And it's not over. If we look at the mapping,
Recording in progress.
we see that the satellite study which was conducted roughly agrees with the findings that we discovered through a series of interviews and discussions with stakeholders. And part of that was to look at farm size. So here you can see a comparison of farm size across different cashew producing countries. And you can see that Cambodia, average farm size, a little bit larger than the average in most parts of India, West Africa, East Africa, at just over 3 hectares each. Not as big as Côte d'Ivoire, where the average farm size, I'm told, is 4 hectares. So we could call it larger than average farm size would be the first finding. Secondly, and this is where we find something really different, yield per hectare. Let me go over here and just talk about this. So the average yield per hectare in Cambodia is about 580,000 hectares planted. Average yield 1.422 tonnes per hectare, compared to East Africa around 350, Côte d'Ivoire around 400, even Vietnam, where the average across the country is, depending on who you speak to, but around about 1.1 to 1.3 tonnes per hectare. And in some areas, province of Kratie, we come up with an average production of 2 tonnes per hectare. So whereas in other countries we often hear people talk about high yields on test plots or on commercial farms, in Cambodia the national average is a big, big number. We'll have a look at the quality. 2 areas. First of all, nut size. Cambodian nuts from the M23 variety, and this production expansion is based on that variety. It accounts for about 80% of the trees in Cambodia. As you can see from the chart, 135 nuts per kilo in shell. These are large. This is something that we've not come across before at this level of volume. Secondly, if we look at the outturn is less extraordinary, but it's healthy. 50 to 52 pounds. Right up there amongst the top 5 or 6 in the world. So we're looking at a high quality product. Let's look at a little bit about how it's grown. And the key thing about growing cashew nuts in Cambodia is that it is a unique production model compared to other smallholder models. In Cambodia, we have higher yielding varieties, 1.4 tonnes per hectare, high use of inputs. It's widely grown across the country, concentrated in 7 provinces. Young trees. And what comes out is that we've much higher variable costs than in other countries. So if we look at, this is the finding of our study, and we're talking here about dollars per tonne at farm level. We're looking at a range between 3 studies of 315, 512, and our own conclusions, just over $400 per tonne. Compare that to West Africa, compare it to Côte d'Ivoire or to India, it's a higher cost of production. Costs are higher by 17 to 20%, but that's more than offset by yields which are about 62% higher than average. Where is Cambodia going? So in the course of the work, we did 2 forecasts. First one was just simply based on the current trend, and the second one was a little bit more optimistic, based on slightly faster growth. In both cases, we're saying that the actual planted area will only grow by about 2% per annum, but that what's happening is that more and more trees are coming online. So these are young trees and their yields are improving as they mature. Whatever way you look at it, it looks as if Cambodia will reach about 1 million tons of production either in 2028 or in 2029. Obviously, given good weather conditions in any one of those years. Now, it's obviously not increasing at the rates that we've seen in the past, but it is still increasing. So what we see in Cambodia is unique varieties, high yield, high quality product, high inputs, and therefore high costs, and of course, high prices at the farm gate, which, as we heard this morning, is the case. Let's have a look at commercialization. 97% of Cambodian cashews have gone to Vietnam over the years for processing there. If we look at the prices, and this chart compares prices during the Cambodian season from 2019 until 2024, we see that the price for Cambodian RCN is just about always above the world average at that time of year. So generally, higher quality, larger nuts, prices higher than the world average. Cashew processing in Cambodia. The capacity is about 8.5% of the crop, but actually processed is just over 2%. That's based on 2024 figures, about 18,000 tons processed. It's processed in a large number of units. There are about 40 factories. Mostly those are small and medium factories. If we look at how the capacity is spread, we can see that in the medium and small factories are important, but the large factories dominate in terms of capacity. So when we look at the actual capacity rather than the nuts processed, we're looking at about 42% of the capacity is with those large factories. But this also means that there is a very widespread level of expertise throughout the country in processing in some of those smaller businesses. So in terms of the value addition and commercialization, we see high dependence on Vietnam. The post-harvest structure for Cambodia is really located in Vietnam. The raw nuts are exported before being dried or calibrated. So effectively, the post-harvest infrastructure is in the neighboring country. Processing is increasing. The plants that are operating are productive, and indications on costs of processing are also quite positive. We found that those that were operating are quite competitive. What's needed for Cambodia, we think, is more competition in the supply chain. It is difficult to build a market based on a single customer or a single type of activity. Potential in the chain, at the moment, the entire chain is worth about $1 billion every year. With the development of production, quality and processing, we estimate that could be just under $2 billion by 2035. So looking at the Cambodian sector, what we see in summary is high potential. We see a supportive government policy introduced in January 2023. We see a high quality, sustainable production, and we see an opportunity for investment.